wise partners. We need to walk with wise partners. And the first of the lessons that we had in this issue of walking with wise partners, we recognize that we should not partner with those who are still in darkness. And even in that lesson, we recognize that some of the passages that talked about that, there was some nuance between the fact that, well, we do have to be around those who are outside of the Lord. Otherwise, we won't be bringing anybody to Jesus. And so now that we're wrapping up this issue of wise partners, we want to come back and visit that again. So it's kind of like bookends on this section. Okay, we're walking with others. We're walking with wise partners. We've made sure to not be best friends with those who are going to lead us into darkness. But we do want to walk in wisdom toward outsiders. And so that's what we've got going on in our lesson tonight. So page 34, we're going to talk on that. The paragraph here, well, I guess I've just summed all that up. So we're just going to jump into the questions. Colossians chapter 4, verses 5 and 6 say this: "Walk in wisdom toward outsiders, making the best use of the time. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person." So here's where we're going to begin. Just the question, what do you think Paul means to this? What's your first reaction to hearing what Paul says there in Colossians 4 and verse 5, where he says that we need to walk in wisdom toward outsiders? Who wants to help out with that? All right, right down here with Ed. Hold your hand up there so he can see you. Thank you, sir.
Look at your left hand.
Go ahead.
The way you walk reflects your values.
Okay.
So if you're walking in an upright way, as we should be, it reflects the values we have from the Lord. And conversely, if the outsiders know that we are, quote, the Lord's people, and we're not walking in a path of light, then it'll bring shame and disgrace upon the Lord's name.
Okay, so there's a certain aspect of this wisdom that is the example that we're setting. The issue of walking among those who are outside so that they can see the truth through us. They can see Jesus through us. All right, we'll go ahead. Hold on a sec. It got to someone else before it got to you. Go ahead, Eli.
Well, at first, it's easy to say we are the light, and the light pushes away darkness. So as we're walking throughout the world is darkness. So we are the light pushing the darkness away. It's very clear with verse 3 that Paul's praying for God to open up a door for the world, and he's talking about evangelizing.
Okay.
And so I think it's clear when we're walking in wisdom towards outsiders, we're living a righteous path, not only for our own sake, not only for our own soul, but that we are examples for others to bring others towards Jesus. There's a direction there that I think is Paul's getting at.
All right, so what we're trying to do is draw folks in. While we do want to make a distinction, we learned that in the first lesson in this section, that it's not, we don't, again, want to be best friends, the people that we're relying on the most and getting the support from, those who will lead us astray. But at the same time, we are wanting to be the influencers that will draw folks in. And so we have to make sure that our behavior towards them is guided by wisdom. We'll go Harley and then go ahead.
I just had a simple thought. This isn't my own thinking here. It says, be your best when you interact with other people. Be the example of the light in the room on the lampstand.
Okay. Yeah, I like that statement. Be at your best as you're interacting with other people. Again, being that light. We are the light of the world. We are supposed to be up on that lampstand so that when they see us, are they just seeing us? Is it supposed to be about so they can see us? No, of course it's supposed to be about they see us and they realize God. And they're looking through us to God. And that's that wisdom there. Okay, go ahead and then down to Adam.
I also think it's intentionally like a one-size-fits-all kind of answer, intentionally generic, because walking in wisdom toward outsiders, there's lots of different kinds of outsiders,
okay.
Right? Some that are good people, but not Christians, some that require a whole lot more of our patience. So I think we need to approach people in different ways depending on what they need to see from us.
Yeah, so the recognition that not every person walking in wisdom towards one outsider might look differently than walking in wisdom towards another. It is, and that, where that comes from is actually listening, paying attention, questioning, not just having the here's what I say to everybody, but I'm actually listening and questioning and getting to know people so that I can respond with wisdom. All right, Tom, and then Adam.
That's along the lines I was thinking of, to approach someone with a humble conviction, understanding where they are and where you've been, and not to condescend.
Okay. Humility is going to be a part of this wisdom, but I like that, humble conviction, humility, and yet I'm not compromising. I'm in my lack of compromise. I'm not going to be self-righteous. I'm not going to be hyper judgmental, but at the same time, I'm going to have the conviction that says, here's what God wants from us. Adam?
This verse in Colossians 4:5 made me think of 1 Peter 2:12, where it says, "Keep your behavior excellent among the Gentiles, so that in the things in which they slander you as evildoers, they may, on account of your good deeds, as they observe them, glorify God in the day of visitation."
Okay. Were you wanting to comment more on that, or?
Yeah, it's just that even though they slander you and you keep doing good things, they eventually will come around to maybe even obeying the gospel.
Okay.
And they will glorify God in the day of visitation.
Yeah, to respond in kind, when there is the slander, if we just step up and we get involved in that kind of bickering back and forth, that's folly. But when we endure the slander, when we endure the mockery, when we endure whatever those who are outside, and of course not all outsiders treat us that way, but when we have to put up with that, endure that, when we respond back wisely with the love of Christ, with the humble conviction, listening, questioning, seeing where they are, and recognizing that, okay, here's the wise thing to do in this case, it'll remove the leg to stand on that those who are against us have. Paul says to Titus that he needs to make sure to show himself as a model of good works, and his teaching show integrity and dignity and sound speech, so that the opponent will have nothing that they can say against us, but they'll end up being ashamed. And that's that wisdom and that wise approach. All right, so in Colossians 4 and verse 5, we have the passage that we've just read there. In Ephesians 5:15 through 17, I want us to compare and contrast these two verses. So Colossians 4:5, walk in wisdom toward outsiders, making the best use of the time. So we've got that issue of walking in wisdom. In Ephesians 5:15 through 17, look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. So Colossians and Ephesians we often talk about sister letters. There are a lot of things that they say that are the same. This here, however, to me, seems to be using some of the similar language, but seems to be talking about two different things here. So compare and contrast these things. What are the points being made here as you see these two passages? Right here with Wendy.
I was glad you made us do this. I'd never looked at this. But in the Ephesians letter, he seems, because in the context, if you go back up to verse 7, and he says, let me see, I didn't write that one down. But not to become partakers with them. And then later on, take no part in their unfruitful works. And then he says, look carefully then, tying it to the previous point, how you walk. And so it seems to me in Ephesians, he's talking about that we should not be influenced by outsiders, whereas in Colossians, it seems to be directing us how we would influence two outsiders. And then I'm not going to steal your points.
No, you're fine. That's great.
From 1 Peter, I'm not trying to jump over there too much. In that case, if you go back up, he says, he uses words like harm and, who is there could do you harm? And in verse 13, verse 14, even if you should suffer, have no fear. And then after he makes a statement in verse 16, I can't read my own writing, but anyway, better to suffer. And he says to make, in this case, he says to make a defense, an apologetics, almost as though you're going to be experiencing some unpleasantness, perhaps legally, in this situation. So it seems to me he's addressing three different interactions with outsiders. And the last one, the most unpleasant, you're being called out, and are you going to be able? And also, if I could say something interesting about that, I never thought about. He says, "Be ready." Jesus told the apostles, "Don't worry about it. I'm going to tell you what to say."
Okay.
The Holy Spirit's going to tell you what to say. But that was the apostles. Here, he's saying, get your act together.
Get ready.
Yeah.
Prepare for it. Very good. So just taking a look at the verses themselves, and I think what's come out there highlights this. In Ephesians, the statement itself is more about that personal making sure that I'm not being dragged away. This is how we're supposed to behave. Look carefully how you walk, not as unwise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. I think that notion of because the days are evil is that idea that we never know what's going to happen next. We don't know that we're promised tomorrow. And so it's, look, don't be dragged away by the influence of others, because we never know what's going to happen next. You're not promised tomorrow. In Colossians, it is more of that relational, how we're interacting with others. Make the best use of your time in how you're responding to others. Make sure that the way we're talking to others is the best influence that we can be toward others. Harley, what did you want to say here?
I was thinking between Colossians and Ephesians, the message is about the same. However, in Ephesians, I look at where it says making the best use of the time because the days are evil. I look at that as like a reminder or a warning to always be on your guard.
Yeah, always be on your guard. Always be on your guard. Okay. Yeah, today is the day of salvation. Today is the time. Don't put off till tomorrow serving the Lord. Don't think I'll deal with this tomorrow when it comes to this walking wisely towards outsiders. This needs to start today. Walk with the wisdom. And again, so I love looking at this from both directions. The fact that I want to walk in wisdom, which means I deal with the influence that's coming my way, but also walking in wisdom so that I am the best influence that I can be as I'm interacting with others. Now, this is interesting to me. In Colossians 4 and verse 5, the possible meaning of the word translated time here is opportunity. Opportunity. So what would you make of this verse if we had a translation that instead of saying time, said walk in wisdom towards outsiders, making the best use of the opportunity. All right, down here again. Yeah, we might have to get one for Harley just so he can hold it the whole time. That's all right. Go ahead.
Yeah. I looked at, here's my interpretation. Opportunity is in the present time, which is now.
Okay.
There is no guarantee of tomorrow.
Okay, so again, we're talking about the time, the present time, no guarantee of tomorrow. Back over here on the right with Brother Stitt. Hold your hand up. He can't see you. There we go. The present time. This is the time you have. You may not have another opportunity. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, kind of what you were saying just there is we may only have one sentence, one conversation with this outsider, so you have to make the best use of that time, of that opportunity with that person.
All right. So one of the things, and I want us to have that in our mind, but I do also want us to recognize, because when I hear that, does anybody just hear, oh, we may only have one opportunity, I got to get it all right, we got to have them baptized by the end of the day. Okay, we're not saying that. I mean, the reality is my one opportunity may be I'm step 2 in a 100-step process in their life. But I've got to make sure that my part in the process is wise, that I'm making the most of that opportunity that leads them in a positive direction. So when we're talking about making the most of the opportunity, it doesn't mean, man, I got to have it all together and have my one shot with them, and I got to give them the whole gospel in this first meeting and have them baptized by midnight, or it's a loss. No, it's the recognition God is working. God is working, and he's working through more people than just me and more people than just you, but he is working through us. And so we want to make sure that we are those instruments in those moments and view them as opportunities. View these moments as we're interacting with outsiders as opportunities. Go ahead, brother.
Well, if we listen to what people say, our opportunity may be just to invite them to church.
Okay.
It might be that simple. It might, that's the best use that you can do. You can't preach them the whole night, but you can invite them.
Okay. Yeah, so when we have that opportunity, by the way, and I don't think the cards are back there. Andrew's going to be using them in our outreach meeting tonight. But in 2 Sundays, we're having one of our follow-ups for the Bring a Friend Day. We're going to be asking the question, did Jesus really rise from the dead? It's a great opportunity for you guys to start talking to folks and say, hey, here's this great lesson coming up. That's 2 Sundays from today, August 3rd. We're going to be doing that. We'll have some invitation cards out starting, I guess, Wednesday night so that you guys can be doing that. Thinking about this issue of opportunity. So I like viewing it as opportunity because I don't often, as I'm interacting with people, recognize this is an opportunity. The difference between opportunity and time. Time just sounds like, okay, time is progressing. I got to do something with it. Opportunity says, this time means something. This time right here is important. I got to be doing something with it. Here is my opportunity to invite someone, my opportunity to offer to pray for them, my opportunity to shine the light of Jesus just in the way I'm acting and in the way I'm speaking. I want to make sure to use this opportunity in the most opportune way. Tom?
Yeah, I think we all understand that God gives the increase, and we're told to plant and water. I think we run the risk sometimes of overestimating what our role is in this and underestimating what God can do with us just planting that seed.
Okay.
And so I think we should, and I think I've been guilty of that over the years, from time to time, feeling like, hey, this is all on me. If I miss this opportunity, this person's going to be lost, may be lost. Mm-hmm. And I think that's incorrect.
Yeah. So, so what you just said there, we can take in a couple of different directions. And the thing that I'm thinking about based on what you said there was realizing that when I take the opportunities that God has put before me, he can multiply their effectiveness. I fear that it's all on me and I'm going to mess it up, so I don't try. But I realize that God works when we work. And here's an opportunity to do something. And rather than being paralyzed because I might mess it up, here's an opportunity, I'm going to do something. And then let God honor it however he is going to, because he's the one that gives the increase. Derek?
Yeah, it's like, as you were talking about it with the cars, just this afternoon for lunch, we went to the Outback, and the server's name was Sean, and I always take the card and I put our name and stuff on the back, and I gave it to him, and we got into about just a short 3-minute conversation. He's Catholic, and he was saying he didn't feel he getting anything out of it, like he just being talked to, but he wanted more of a conversational thing where he's actually getting things out of it. And so I kind of explained to him, about us and invited him to come, and he said, I pass by this building all the time. I said, and just took time, a simple card led to a conversation.
Yeah.
And like you said, and let God provide the increase after this.
Interestingly there, already the issue from 1 Peter about being ready, this is a different kind of being ready. I don't want to say that what's in 1 Peter is about that, but this is the kind of, if I'm going to make the most of the opportunity, some of it is also being prepared, having plans. I have a tool that I can use. I figured out how I'm going to talk to people about this. One of the things is, by the way, to prepare for the opportunities is because we blew the last opportunity. Anybody blown some opportunities? Okay. But having blown the opportunity, we have 2 options there. We can either blow the opportunity and not learn anything about it and blow the next opportunity as well, and then the next opportunity, or we learned something. We learned, I don't answer that question that way. I don't talk like that. I don't, and now I've learned. And so that the next time it comes up, I mean, sometimes that's what it is. The failures help us grow so that the next time we're able to make the most of the opportunities. Over here, Scott. Over here with Heather. So that the next time we're able to make the most of the opportunity. And even though I know we failed, I'm not saying let's not care whether or not we failed. I think we should care whether we messed it up. But rather than beating ourselves up, take it as the learning opportunity. So I am like I'm not the world's worst chess player. But when that guy dies, I'll be right there. But I still have a shirt that my kids bought for me that says, and you've probably seen this with other sports, but it says, I never lose. I either win or I learn. I do a lot of learning. Probably not as much, but that's the way it is. It's okay. It's not a failure. It's a learning opportunity. Go ahead, Heather.
I was just going to share a missed opportunity that I had last week that I will not repeat. And that was, I went to a conference for educators, and there were some very well-known people there that were ready to talk and that have very large platforms that they share their understanding of Scripture. And one of them was even sitting in the break area just hanging out. And I went down the elevator, and I did not approach that person. And that's someone that's very known for seeking truth. And I have been really wrestling with that since then. So if I go to another conference, I'm going to have lots of material to just make an opportunity. At least I can leave knowing I did what I could.
Sure. Yeah. So again, learning from the missed and the failed opportunities so that we can grow. Okay, as we continue on here, what do you think would be some foolish ways to walk toward outsiders? Some foolish ways to walk toward outsiders. Right here with Chris. Acting just like them. That's one. Acting just like those who are outside, as if somehow, if I act just like someone who's outside of Christ, I'll convince them to want to be someone who's inside Christ. And it's just not going to work like that. Chris?
Yeah, I had 4 things on my list. The first one was join them in it.
Okay.
We look like them, and we may lose our own soul. 2, accept them, where they think everything is just going to be okay.
Okay, so there's sorry, finish.
I was going to say, they don't even realize that they're outside of Christ.
Right, so there's a difference. We are supposed to love unconditionally, but there's a difference between loving unconditionally and accepting, as if everything everybody does is just okay. All right?
The third one I had is avoid them, where they never contact a Christian.
Okay.
And then the fourth one is judge them, where they never want to talk to a Christian.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I like that. So the last 2 there, he said avoid them. It's foolish to avoid so that they never come in contact with the truth or with the gospel, with Christians. But then also that hyper judgment, that wagging our finger in their face, and so that they don't ever want to talk to us again. And that's all of those things are folly. Somebody else want to add? Go ahead, Scott.
To me, it would be foolish to walk in the same path that you've walked before that you know will lead you to destruction.
Okay.
Outsiders, they're always going that way. And when you get into that broad way, you know where it's going.
Okay.
It's a narrow way.
Right.
So to me, what would be foolish to walk with outsiders, to walk on the same path, you know where it's going to take you.
Right.
It's wrong.
Right. Yeah, again, sometimes it's like we have the idea that if what we do, because we want to make connection, we want them to think we're cool, we want them to like us, and so, I'll go along with you on this path you're on. But I'm not going to cross a line, and, the problem is the closer we try to get to a line, do you know what always happens as we try to rub up close to the line? You cross the line. And one of the things that I hope we will learn, I want to learn it, I want to grow in it, is that God has not asked us to draw close to lines. He's asked us to draw close to Jesus. And as we draw close to Jesus and demonstrate to people what an incredible thing that is, there are those who will be interested in that. Not everybody. Some people will think we're nuts, we're weird, but there will be people who will be interested in that. What are some other things that are folly in the way in walking with outsiders? Over here with Tim.
like we said before in this class, have somebody go with you. But the foolishness is thinking, I got this.
Okay.
And I cannot fail, or I won't. So.
All right. Yeah, so thinking, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. I've got this under control. I can do this all by myself. I don't need to get counsel from anyone. I can, this often happens when we're kind of walking the path with someone else that probably shouldn't be walking. I can handle it. It won't be a big deal. But having those who are with us. One of the things I think about that is folly is kind of the notion that I have to, and this I guess goes along with Chris's fourth thing about the judgmentalism, the notion that everything somebody that I disagree with, that they say that I disagree with, that I have to pounce on it. And, I've got some friends who the wife, she had been converted by her now husband, and they'd been working on her parents for a long time. And finally, when they went to visit her parents, they agreed to attend the worship service with them at a gospel teaching congregation. They walked in and introducing themselves, and whoever it was that first introduced, the mom said to the guy, "Oh, are you the pastor here?" And his response to that was not, "Oh no, that's not me," and then going on. No, his response was, "Well, the first thing you have to learn is what a pastor really is." Now look, guys, I think that the majority of the religious world misunderstands what a pastor is. I think that's true. But I think it is folly that the first time a guest walks in the door, we feel the need to pounce them on that particular issue. In fact, on a lot of issues. I think that's folly. All right, but I also think it's folly to act like we're never going to talk about things we disagree about. Because there's the place that we have to demonstrate, here's what the scripture actually says. So the wise path is between those two extremes. Go ahead.
Maybe just one other thing is just in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, Paul says that when he came to the Corinthian church, he says, "I did not come in excellence of speech or of wisdom, declaring to you the testimony of God. For I determined not to know anything among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling, and my speech and my preaching were not with persuasive words of human wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power, that your faith should not be in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God." I think a very important piece for us just to be mindful of is that when we are trying to act wisely, it better be with God's wisdom, not our own, because we're not converting them to ourselves, we're converting them to Christ.
I think that's an important thing, because how often do I think, I'm the one who knows how to do this, and somehow I'm going to impress people with how wise I am, as opposed to, no, I want to impress people with God's wisdom.
Bouncing off what you said earlier about not pouncing on people, teaching is based on building a relationship. You want to build that friendship with them, and they trust you, and they see the real you. And when it comes from somebody that they know cares about them and loves them, it's easier to hear things like, "This is not right," and they know you're coming from a good place.
All right, so part of walking in wisdom is developing relationship, is speaking from that. I don't think this means that we're only allowed to share the gospel with people after we've been best friends for 5 years. Sometimes I fear that I kind of wait until I hope it'll be the most perfect time. But I do need to understand that if I have no relationship with somebody, they're not going to accept, "Hey, you're wrong on this." So we do want to work on. In fact, I think it's great that if what we're doing here, walking in wisdom, is not just trying to convince people of things, but actually trying to care about people. And that as we are sharing the gospel, it comes because we care about them. Not, I'm going to convince you of some things and then I'll start caring about you. Go ahead.
It's similar to what you've been saying. Someone online, Ali Stuckey, if you follow her, she said, "Love does not equal affirmation. What often feels like hate to the world is obedience to God. And the world wants to use things like love and empathy and manipulate you into compromising God's word. and then, love is love is love is love, and affirming gay marriage. And she was talking about if you do those things, you are claiming to know how to love better than God does. And it becomes like a sin of just, better than God.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
Yeah, going along with that wisdom idea, that it's God's wisdom. And if I am going to try to teach or say things differently than God does, I'm claiming I'm wiser than him. And that's not true. That's not true. Okay. How does Paul describe this wise walk in Colossians 4 and verse 6? In Colossians 4 and verse 5, it says, walk in wisdom towards outsiders, make the best use of your time. Then in verse 6, how is it described there? Seasoned with salt, which means what? Speak with grace, so he mentions that specifically. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt. All right? Anybody want to help out with what you think? Oh, good. We're going somewhere over here. I'm glad they're looking also.
We talked about this some in the Fast Facts About False Teachers class.
Okay.
And it made me think of a book I read, Mama Bear Apologetics. And she talks about terrifying truth tellers.
Okay.
Basically like, children that will say, that man's smoking, or you're going to hell. That's not grace. That's not seasoned with salt. That's not speaking the truth in love.
Okay. Yeah, so speaking the truth in love, I appreciate you bringing that in here. That's in Ephesians as well. Speaking the truth in love, that when I am sharing a thing, it is because I care. It's because I'm trying to draw someone to the grace of God. Not because I'm trying to prove that I'm smarter or better or wiser, but it's because here's what God has offered, and what God has offered is the greatest. Here's a couple things. We're running short on time. This was interesting. So around the time, the New Testament, Plutarch, he wrote that a certain grace he writes that the speaker can convey, quote, a certain grace by means of words as with salt. So I find it interesting that Paul is using the same metaphor that some of these ancient historians would about writing and speaking. He also says, and this one's interesting to me. This is from Plutarch again. Wit is probably the tastiest condiment of all. Therefore, some call it graciousness because it makes the necessary chore of eating pleasant. So that idea of, I don't have to be boring. I certainly don't want to be mean. But that recognition of being creative, I love this. This was one commentator, James Dunn. Let me make sure I got the right. Yeah, he's actually quoting F.F. Bruce on this, commenting on these statements. Those who are the salt of the earth may reasonably be expected to have some savor about their language. Okay, so something that, again, that's creative, clever. You can use humor. We don't have to be dry and boring. And again, I think we don't ever want to be snarky and sarcastic, but being clever and creative is okay. And of course, again, seasoned with salt. We want to speak, we want to learn, and that's why those failed opportunities are important, because very often the failed opportunities are when we're going to say, man, I didn't say that well. I got to think through how to say that better. And so that the next time it is more seasoned speech. So somebody over here. Okay, Tom.
That's where I was going, is palatable.
Yeah.
We use salt on our food to make it taste better. If it doesn't have enough salt, we don't like it. If it has too much, we spit it out.
Okay.
And so we want to be somewhere in the middle so it's palatable when we talk to people, that it's something they can receive and they can think on.
Yeah. The interesting thing here, I do want to point this out, is that it's interesting that when trying to talk about this, he mentions salt and not sugar. I don't know, that probably it's making too much out of this, but he is not saying just be as sugary sweet as you can possibly be. Good.
I think another part of it is that it's also very intentional. You can make food, but it's very intentional to season it and make sure it tastes good, and you think about it and you think about how much you're putting on, and so there's that level of intentional as well.
All right, intentionality, purposeful. That's we're going to get up here to Peter maybe before the bell rings. Again, being ready, having prepared ahead of time. Go ahead.
Well, one thing I think we struggle with the salt metaphor is we have salt as much as we want.
Yeah, sure.
It was very much, and people could eat their food and get their nutrients, get the truth, if you will, without it. But it's not going to go down. And again, as Brother Garland said, it wouldn't be digested. And I think of the whole discussion, what Paul does when he goes to Athens, that he's provoked in his spirit. He's seeing the idols. Probably all he wants to do is walk in the Areopagus and tell them, "You wicked Gentiles, how could you be this stupid?"
Yeah.
And he doesn't say any of that. He finds a way to say, hey, there's something positive here that you found by accident. Let me lead you to God. But I think that the other part is he doesn't then avoid the truth that we discussed in the lesson this morning, that the resurrection, where he knew, having learned at the school of Tyrannus, they weren't going to accept that. But he still taught the truth. But the people that wanted to believe, he led them in the best way, could of course be inspired by the Spirit, but then went through and told the truth.
Yeah, good point. That's a great illustration. All right, one more here, and then we got to move on.
In that day and age, many Roman soldiers were paid in salt, which means it had a great monetary value.
Yeah.
So I think one of the points Paul is trying to make is, yes, let your speech be graceful, but also make it valuable. To the hearer.
Good point. Yeah, so what we say, seasoned with grace, seasoned with love. Wow. All right. So 1 Peter 3, Peter talks about being able to give a good answer to those outside. 1 Peter 3, 13 through 17. What insight does it give us? So in 1 Peter chapter 3, beginning at verse 13, now, who is there to harm you if you are zealous for what is good? But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled. But in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. Having a good conscience, so that when you are slandered, those who revile your good behavior in Christ may be put to shame. For it is better to suffer for doing good, if that should be God's will, than for doing evil. Time's sake, let me just share a few things here with you that I want to make sure that we get out of this passage. First of all, be prepared to suffer. Be prepared to suffer. This is what he points out. This passage is actually not saying what I've heard. Most time I hear this brought up in sermons, I hear about, hey, if you're on the job and everybody else is cussing, but you're not cussing, they'll think, oh, you're a special person, and one day when they're thinking about something, they want to come talk to you about it. That's true. That is true. When you stand out and you're not involved in the dirty jokes and the cussing, and folks will recognize the difference. But that's not actually what this passage is talking about. This passage is talking about Christians suffering, being belittled, persecuted, and yet standing up under it until the people finally say, why are you willing to do that? Why are you willing to, where is your hope? You obviously hope in something that I don't hope in, that allows you to tolerate this and put up with this and continue to follow this Lord. Now, that's obviously a very extreme situation. Then we can apply back to the less extreme situations. But that realization that we need to live in such a way that it prompts people to ask, why? Why are you willing to live like that? And when they ask, be ready to explain. Be ready to explain. Now, I certainly think that we can apply that across the board. We need to be ready to answer people's Bible questions. I do think, though, a lot of times we come to this passage and we get freaked out. I got to know how to answer every possible Bible question. I don't know enough Bible. First of all, let me just say that probably a lot of us know more Bible than most people in the world. Probably. Not everybody, but a lot. So, but secondly, recognize, somebody's going to ask a question you don't know the answer to. What do we do with that? Well, what we do with that is say, I'm not ready to answer that one right now. Let's get together next Tuesday. And then study it. Ask one of the elders, talk to somebody, and figure it out. Okay, but what we should at least be able to do is give a defense for why we decided to be Christians. We may not be able to answer every Bible question people can possibly ask, but we ought to be able to at least say, this is what did it for me. This is what caused me to decide to follow Jesus. This is why my hope is in him and not in money. This is why my hope is in him and not in my family. This is why my hope is in him and not in my job, not in the president, not in safety. My hope is in Jesus, and here's why. We need to be able to do that. I do want us to see Colossians 4:2. Colossians 4:2. You guys can certainly shout out this answer. The issue of walking in wisdom toward outsiders. Paul, before he got to that point, said, continue steadfastly in prayer, being watchful in it with thanksgiving. Verse 3, at the same time, pray also for us that God may open the door for the word. If we're going to walk in wisdom, towards outsiders, what's one of the things we're going to be doing for outsiders? We're going to be praying. We're going to be praying. Hey, by the way, can I point out that every other month on the second Sunday night of the month, we have a time for Christians to get together and pray for outsiders. It got moved this month to tonight. Tonight's a workshop, a class. We do this we have the meeting, the second Sunday night of the month, every month. Every other one is a prayer time. Every other one is a workshop, a class session. But this is one of the things. We need to be praying for those who are outside. We need to be praying for those who have fallen. We need to be praying for those who are working with outsiders. We need to be praying for outsiders that we know that we want to get the gospel to by name. We need to be praying for our congregation that we can reach out to outsiders. We need to make sure that we are praying because, again, if it's actually about God and God's wisdom, and if it's actually about pointing people toward God, well, I need to ask God to be involved in this. Does that make sense? We need to make sure that we are praying. And I do just want to point out, in Romans 5:6-11, the last question, Jesus loved us when we were weak, sinful, ungodly, enemies. All right, that means we need to love others when they are weak, sinful, ungodly enemies. We've already pointed out that's not the same as accepting. That's not the same as condoning. But we need to see every person out there, this is someone I love. And because I love them, I want to get the message of Jesus to them in the best way possible, making the most use of the time, making the best use of the opportunities. Thanks a lot, guys. Just so you know, guests, we're going to have a brief break. All the other classes are going to come out here and meet us in the auditorium. We're going to have a very short assembly with a couple of songs, some word from our elders. We'd love for you to stick around through that break and be here with us at that time. Thank you.